All right. Well, thank you for coming to the presentation tonight. I am Jeff Demansky. I'm the executive director of, oops, somebody's showing up exactly. Oh, it looks like the mayor.
Okay.
That's perfect. Well, so welcome. Thank you for attending tonight. I am Jeff Demansky. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit that's one of the members of a team that is supporting a number of communities here in the Hudson Valley in implementing a program that is generically called and a little technically called community choice aggregation. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But I will just say that we're recording the presentation tonight, and we'll have the recording available. So for folks reviewing the recording, welcome virtually and in the future. But for the folks here tonight, always good to start with Zoom etiquette. If you guys just keep yourselves muted, just when you're not speaking, we can turn our cameras and microphones on at the end for questions and answers. But otherwise, I think everyone's pretty familiar with how we navigate a Zoom meeting these days. And so I'm going to move forward, but I'll give you kind of just a brief overview, and I'll give a heads up to our village representatives that I'm going to welcome them to say hello as well and kind of welcome us to the meeting in a second, and share anything that they'd like to share before we really kick into the content. But we're here tonight, one of 4 communities currently that are part of an effort to explore the possibility of joining a partnership program focused on clean energy choices. And the name of the partnership is Hudson Valley Community Power. And it's the village. You can see the seal for the village of Saugerties is joining 3 other communities in this effort currently. And they'll be joining 10 other communities that are in this partnership, which are shown here, all these seals, including my city where I live down in Beacon. All of these communities that are shown here, and Saugerties and Gardner and the village of Nelsonville and the town of Rhinebeck, are all doing this exploration with an administrator approved by New York State to be the guide for implementation of these programs. And the name of that company is in the lower right corner of the slide, and that's Jewel Community Power. They're a company that's based in Westchester, and they are quite expert at this. And they've been an excellent resource to the state in the design and implementation of these programs. And Jewel, in their model, chose to have a nonprofit partner in the regions around the state where they're implementing these programs. And in the Hudson Valley, that's my nonprofit. And so I'm the executive director of Hudson Valley Energy, which is the logo just to the left of Jewel. And so I'm going to take us through and talk about this exploration by these communities who are looking into joining Hudson Valley Community Power, which is a CCA program, or Community Choice Aggregation Program. And so I will talk about what community choice aggregation is, including the benefits of CCA. And for the members of these communities that are exploring this, answer the questions of, will CCA affect me, or how will it affect me, and when will it affect me? And part of that description for people to understand what community choice aggregation is, this program where you can have the community leaders negotiate a very competitive rate for electricity supply. It's very helpful, I think, to look at it through the lens of the Central Hudson bill that people have been receiving a little irregularly as of late, but it has been something of the norm. And so this is something that all takes place through the Central Hudson bill. So I'll provide a description of the program through that lens. And we'll talk about, in the process of the exploration, what are the next steps, and I'll answer questions at the end that are common, but then definitely we'll leave time for questions. And please do, forgot to say this in my Zoom etiquette, please do feel free to use the chat window to share questions or requests for clarification as we go through the presentation. So I will dive into the content shortly, as I promised, but let me welcome the mayor, Mayor Murphy, and Trustee Mayor, who are both here tonight. And please say hello, or if I welcome your background and description of where we are to date, and any other thoughts you'd like to share. So turn it over to you.
Yeah,
Just
Jeff.
like to say hello and welcome to everybody that's on the call. And I know, Jeff, that we've heard your presentation, and you have fantastic representation and information to give us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Mayor?
Yeah, I would like to add that, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I don't see many people on, which is surprising because I sent this link to quite a few people who emailed me today, but maybe they had difficulty getting in. But just to put out there, I mean, I think I mentioned in the last meeting you were at with us, Jeff, first off, they have people now that are approaching me saying, well, why didn't we do it when the town did it? Well, it wasn't offered to us at the time the town did it. The town did it. It took them over a year to get into the program. We started it last year, and this is, why we're getting into it now. Secondly, a year ago when we first started talking that we're going to do this, the majority of the input I got from the community was, don't you dare do that. No way. You shouldn't be choosing our electric for us. Who do you guys think you are? Blah, blah, blah. Now, daily, today alone, I got 7 emails from people saying, when are we going to get in this program? So, thanks to Central Hudson and their outrageous actions of late, people are realizing that this program is a benefit. And this is a perfect situation of what's going on right now, why these programs can benefit people. And honestly, some of the people now who are begging me to make sure we get in are the same people who a year ago told me I have no right choosing, or the village has no right choosing their carrier for them. So it's just kind of ironic, and again, this is an opportunity for us to try to do right by our residents. No one has to stay in a program they don't want to. It's their choice, and I said from the beginning, if we didn't pursue this and never offer this to our community, people will be saying the opposite, saying, well, why didn't you give us the opportunity to decide? So now we are. So, and thanks to Central Hudson and the current bills, we seem like it's getting a lot of momentum now. And I'm trying to explain to people, this is a long process. We started a while ago, and I think, what I told a few people today is the goal is to be on this by the fall, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, it's the old adage, and something we're used to being in these positions. So, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I mean, I get Central Hudson bills too, so does Janine. So we know the pain people are going through right now, and I'm more looking forward. I admit I'm more looking forward to this now than probably I was a year ago. I definitely, because of what's happening, even I myself see more of a need for it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, it's true. And what you speak to as well is, with the hesitancy in the past, I think it speaks to some of the kind of common misconceptions that people have about energy choice and the current situation. A lot of, and this is something I'll emphasize a number of times, that what's happening here, if the village decides to proceed with this program, it's basically taking advantage of a regulation that was established in New York in 2016 that allows local decision making. And really, it is, as we'll talk about, a way that through local decision making, there can be a decision about what the electricity generation sources are for community members as a new choice. It doesn't take away any other choices. It's a new choice option. And what has been surprising to people, as a bit of a preview for what I'll talk about, is that if and when this program launches, it is a default choice for a majority of the community. But it's a new default choice, and an additional choice at that replaces actually an existing opt-out. People don't think about that they're actually in an opt-out program to begin with, and it's a state designated opt-out, whereby if people don't take advantage of the supply marketplace, the utility company, in addition to their delivery services, will make that supply choice for them, and that's an opt-out in which they have no input. So we'll address that and some other misconceptions as well.
Just for an FYI, I'm probably not going to make it through this whole call. I do have to leave early,
no problem. Thank you though for being here, and feel free to jump in, or just let me know if there's anything else you want for clarifications as we go through.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right, so I'm gonna jump forward here, jump into the content here, and start to get into the details about what is community choice aggregation. Community choice aggregation, and I try not to use too many acronyms, but CCA is a common acronym that's used instead of saying community choice aggregation. But in essence, it's a policy that, as I mentioned, was enacted by the Public Service Commission in New York in 2016 to enable cities and towns and villages to offer an energy purchase program on behalf of their community members. So it's not something that they do just for the municipal properties. It's something that's done for the community members as a benefit. And what the term community choice aggregation means, to break down the words here, it's a program that, it's, to use an analogy, it's a buying club like Costco or BJ's Wholesale. But in essence, communities aggregate with other communities to offer a choice option, an additional new choice option. With our focus, it's for electricity supply. You know, the how of people's electricity is made on a statewide basis, and how much it costs, and, you know, to some degree where that power is made. And wonderfully, our focus through this program is to deliver a win-win-win scenario where you can pay a very competitive rate for 100% renewable production from New York State sources. So it's a way to have influence through the power of a consumer, through your utility bill, on the mix of generation sources in New York State. So it's kind of wonderful that you can have this statewide benefit with everything that comes with it. So again, jumping back to the bullets here though, so it's a policy that has to be enacted by a city or town or village to form this purchase program for electricity supply. And in essence, municipalities aggregate together to have bulk demand leverage in the supply marketplace. It is designed that, you know, the power of the program is that it does replace an existing default program that was established in the 1990s when the utility markets were deregulated. And an existing default is that if somebody does not take advantage of the right they have as a utility customer in New York to designate their supply source, that the existing default is that the utility will make that choice for them without any input from the customer and at a variable rate. So we're shifting the selection of the default supplier from the state, which is the utility making that choice, to a local decision by the aggregation of local communities. And every customer is eligible within a community. Not everyone is included as an opt-out choice, but everyone is allowed to take advantage of a program within those municipal borders. So it truly is structured to be simple and structured to be a public benefit, focused on 3 wins in essence. And we'll talk about what those, you know, what those benefits are, those 3 win-win-win scenarios. So we're talking about electricity supply as the focus of this buying club. And when electricity supply, as it's reflected on your utility bill, it's a matter of how much electricity you use, how that's converted to how much you owe, how much you pay for that. And so we're talking about a rate, and it's dollars or cents, depending on how you're looking at it, per kilowatt hour for your electricity supply rate. And our focus here is for New York State renewable generation as a default option, though not necessarily the only option. And we're talking about a fixed rate. So part of the consumer benefit of this is that it's a simple program overseen by a team to make sure that it stays simple and delivers what it was designed to deliver at the start. By fixed, I mean, if you look at that simplified graph on the right, it's that flat green line is the representation of the program rate. It's a rate, you know, some cents per kilowatt hour that is the same for every single month for the duration of the contract that would be decided on or could be decided on by the community to take advantage of, which is compared to determine if it makes sense, the bouncing line there, the line that goes up and down, is the market rate or the rate that the utility selects for their customers on a month-to-month basis. And the idea here is that there's certainty and it's a competitive rate, but also, and I'll show you a chart with a bunch of lines on it at the end to show how the programs have actually been doing in the Hudson Valley. And what we show is that when you compare the average of that line going up and down of the utility rate to our fixed program rate, there is the potential for the program to actually save money versus what people would have paid with the utility making their choice for them. And when you couple in the fact that our program rates, kind of what we go into this for, is that a fixed program rate is for 100% renewable sourced electricity versus predominantly non-renewable when the utility makes that decision. You couple together these benefits that you can actually pay a competitive rate and possibly less, and it has been proven to be true, you can pay less for 100% renewable electricity than you would have otherwise paid for non-renewable. So therein lies two of the wins, a win-win scenario right there. All right, so it's maybe still abstract. So this is when I bring in the Central Hudson bill to give some understanding about what would change from a customer's perspective if and when a program launches. And there's a few useful data points on this, this idea of looking at the bill as a way to understand the program, including emphasizing a point about what changes when the program, if and when a program launches, and what doesn't change. And one thing that does not change is that top section of the bill. The top red box is surrounding the electricity delivered or electricity delivery charges section of the bill. All of those line items there, all of these shown right here, these are all the line items that are the sources of revenue for Central Hudson. In essence, this is the only section of the bill that Central Hudson and any New York utility is allowed to make money on or generate revenue. Because of deregulation, utility companies were no longer allowed, for the most part, and pretty much almost exclusively, to be in the supply business. Supply is this middle section, and that's about, again, how power is made, how and where the actual power is made. So utilities are not allowed to make money on supply since the late 1990s, since deregulation. That means that because of deregulation, utility companies, to use another analogy, are like FedEx or UPS or the Postal Service. Those companies don't make the packages that they deliver. They are companies that are paid to reliably deliver packages that somebody else makes. That's what the utility companies are these days. They're delivery companies. So all of these line items up here in the delivery charges section pay for those delivery services, which include the billing, producing this bill and having the people behind that to do it. The storm damage repair, making sure that if a storm blows through and their infrastructure is damaged, that they have the crews to fix it. And the infrastructure itself, including the meter on your home, which is the first line of what you pay for with a basic service charge. All of that stays the same, for better or for worse. That does not change at all. That's what Central Hudson has, kind of the lock on in this region, is our delivery company. So whether a program launches or not, that does not stay the same. What we're affecting are these are these supply charges that are down here in this section. And what changes are the numbers in this middle column. These are the rates, and it's not very clearly shown on the bill, but these numbers with all these decimal points, this is the dollars per kilowatt hour. This is a rate, so some amount of money per kilowatt hour. And if you multiply, and this is shown in dollars, for example, this line here, the market price in this particular month, this represents 10.363 cents per kilowatt hour, or it's $0.01363 per kilowatt hour. That every line gets multiplied by however much electricity was used in this particular month. So in this month, in this bill, I used 573 kilowatt hours, and that gets multiplied for the dollars on that line, which add up to my total supply charges. It's similar in the delivery charges section. Every line item multiplied by usage for the total delivery charges. And please I apologize for the confusion, but the usage should be the same for the month. I actually just superimposed this section on a previous bill to show what it looks like when the utility is making your supply decision for you. This is a non-CCA bill. This is for just anybody who's not in a community choice aggregation program or who does not have a third-party supply as their choice. And you can tell because there are 3 line items in that section of the bill, in the supply charges section of the bill. Those 3 line items are the indication that Central Hudson is making that supply choice for this customer. And it's a pass-through cost. They don't make money on that decision. That's just, they basically pass along what they pay in the market right along to the customer. And so that's that section of the bill. What does it look like when a CCA program launches? Well, it looks like this. The 3 line items are replaced by 1 single line item. And there's an indication that someone has chosen an electric supplier that is other than Central Hudson making that supply choice. If you notice, I'm going to jump back up to the previous image, and it says you may choose another supplier for this part of your service. And again, that's what it looks like when Central Hudson's making the choice. If, and including through a CCA program, someone is in an arrangement with a third-party supplier, this is what it looks like. And there's just 1 single line item. And you can see the usage aligns here, my 761 kilowatt hours. And this is it. This is the magic number here for a CCA program for electricity supply. Everything is included here. This is the negotiated rate that was offered through a competitive bid process by the supplier. And this was for the first 2 years of the Hudson Valley Community Power Program from 2019 to 2021. This was the program rate, 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. And that gets multiplied by however much electricity I use for my total supply charges. And then Central Hudson, you pay your Central Hudson bill, and Central Hudson passes along this payment to the supplier, who then to the sources of basically renewable power in New York State. So that's what it looks like. And again, it's all done on the bill. And it's changing just one default setting to another default setting. What I've also included on the bottom part of the bill, another red box on here, I've circled for my bill, I live down in Beacon, that this is a benefit for having a solar arrangement. And in my case, I'm a community solar subscriber. That means that I'm a virtual owner of a portion of a solar field that's in Central Hudson territory. It's, in essence, if I, instead of having community solar, if I had solar panels on my home to generate electricity, it would also be down here in this payments and adjustments section of my bill. I'm not going to go into too much detail into these solar arrangements and the benefits, though I'm happy to answer questions about it. But the point I want to make is that a solar decision, whether somebody has solar on their home or business, or if they're a virtual subscriber to a community solar project, notice that they live in 2 separate sections of the bill. That means that these are 2 different decisions that somebody could make. Somebody could do both a third-party supply or a CCA program for their electricity supply decision, a fixed rate for whatever amount of electricity they use, and they can still reap the benefits of a solar decision as a completely separate arrangement. I really emphasize this because it's so often confused by people that when they have either a community solar subscription, as more and more people are doing these days, or solar, as people are more frequently doing too, a number of people have done that, people confuse that with electricity supply, and they're very different things. So if you would, just keep those 2 mental separations for that. And I'll continue to emphasize this, to revisit this on the next slide, even when we revisit this supply decision and what it means. So using another analogy, I'm just going to revisit this supply decision and reemphasize some points. So this is to use another analogy, my menu slide. And this table here, this electricity supply table shown in yellowish orange, my analogy here is that imagine this is like the appetizer section of a menu in a restaurant. And generally when people go and order dinner at a restaurant from a menu, they often pick one thing from each column, one appetizer, one entree, maybe one dessert. So in this analogy, the same thing applies. You can pick one thing from this, and one only from these choices in the electricity supply section. And these are, again, for what rate you're going to have on your bill. Ignore box 3 for a second. Before a CCA program launches, every utility customer in New York has these 2 options available, number 1 and number 2. The original default program, the opt-out program, is, as determined by deregulation in New York State, that if someone does not go and enter into a private contract with an ESCO or an energy supply company or third-party supplier, the utility company is the original default. That's why the asterisk is there. So the utility company, as I've said, will make that choice for them. But anybody could enter into a contract with a third-party supplier, like Green Mountain Energy, like Ambit, like Viridian, like Direct Energy also does private contracts. That requires someone to enter into a contract for some period of time for an arrangement for electricity supply. Now, if a community launches a CCA program, meaning that aggregation of communities that community might be part of, through a competitive process, picks a supplier for a fixed rate that would go on people's bill, that becomes the new default and a third option. It is something that people, majority of the community, will be offered on an opt-out basis, meaning they're given this membership to this without any contract, and they could opt out at any time to take advantage of the other two choices. So it becomes a third choice that they have. And for the majority of community members, it will be the default, but one that they could say no to at any time or come back into it if they want to at any time for the duration of the contract. So that is the logistics about how it looks on the bill and what we're focusing on in terms of the supply rate program. So why are we doing this? What are the benefits of it? And I've been speaking to it to some degree. This idea of a win-win scenario in terms of a competitive rate, a really good rate for electricity supply that is also a way to exclusively support renewable production in New York State. You know, through this program, you're not exclusively getting, you know, hooked up to a renewable project, but you are exclusively paying for renewable production on New York State sources and therefore putting more renewables on the New York State grid, changing the ratio. And it's done by enabling local selection. So community leaders acting on behalf of their community members give a very competitive rate, kind of optimize a choice in that supply marketplace for their community members, leveraging this bulk buying strategy through aggregation. And they get a fixed rate, which eliminates price volatility. So you're not subjected to, as an option, the varying rate that the utility charges. And because utilities cannot fix rates by the Public Service Commission mandate, they are subject to the market. And so that's why you'll never see pretty much the same rate from one month to the next offered by the utility. And as I've been saying, it's a way through this bulk buying mechanism to accelerate that transition to renewable energy on the New York State grid. So it's a very powerful mechanism. It is also a response to a number of challenges that utility customers have had in New York State with the third-party supply marketplace. So there is a number of consumer protection elements that are baked into the design of how this program rolls out. It is relatively simple and transparent. You know, we're talking about one single fixed rate for the duration of a contract period. So you know exactly what the rate will be and how long that rate will apply. Many folks have been in other situations, and we're often confused with this, where they do enter into a contract with a third-party supplier, choice number 2 on my menu analogy, and they don't understand because they didn't read the fine print clearly enough that they have a fixed rate for a period of time, but then it might turn variable. And sometimes that variable rate can go very high without them realizing it. And they might find that they're in a contract and they can't get out of that contract without an expensive exit fee or an early termination fee. There is none of that in this arrangement. This is an arrangement that a community leadership enters into on behalf of their community members to optimize the offer without any restrictions. It's like the community established a public swimming pool and gave everyone a membership, which they could reject at any time. There's no commitment requirements. So this is, and it is simple in the sense that it is just that fixed rate on the bill. So these are just a number of the consumer protection elements, which is the third win in my win-win-win scenario. So these are the benefits of CCA. So how is the program doing in terms of rate? You know, how does this this promise of this potentially cost advantageous program and this ability to provide renewables, how has it been doing in the Hudson Valley? To show that, I have a performance chart for the Hudson Valley Community Power Program since a new contract started in July of 2021 for these 10 communities, which does include, I think it's cut off a little bit at the bottom, but the town of Saugerties is included in this list of 10 communities. And so what the chart shows, though, there's a number of lines on here. I'm just going to take a moment to walk you through them. The red line here is a calculated average of what an individual customer could expect from that number 2 choice on the menu slide of the private marketplace, of enter into an agreement with an ESCO for a 100% renewable fixed rate supply rate, comparable to what somebody could achieve through a CCA program, which are our program rates down here at the bottom, our green and our purple lines. So the flat green line here is the 100% renewable rate that was obtained through the competitive bid process by these communities early last year with a July start. And the green line is a 100% renewable fixed rate. It's about 6.5 cents, about round up to about 6.6 cents. And it is exclusively for electricity produced by renewable producers in New York State. And so a very good apples to apples comparison to show how the cost comparison can work in terms of 100% renewable for the bulk buying club model for CCA versus what an individual can do is to look at the difference between where the red line is and where the green line is. So this says that by going with a aggregation model, the members of the participating community is doing about 4 cents better than if they were out there on their own per kilowatt hour, which really adds up quite a bit. So that says that this is the promise of the bulk buying club and benefit for the community members. There is also this flat purple line, and a number of our communities were interested in a second fixed rate option through the program. The purple line is a non 100% renewable offer. It's a standard mix, which mirrors what the utility obtains on a month-to-month basis. So it's predominantly not renewable. There is some renewable in there, but not predominantly not. And it is slightly less than our 100% renewable rate, but it's about half a penny less, as shown on the chart. To compare apples to oranges, to compare our program 100% renewable to the non-renewable from the utility, you have to look at the yellow line and the blue lines on here. And they're squished on this chart because of this big jump that happened in the utility rate in February of 2022. But the yellow line is the month-to-month varying rate for Central Hudson for that predominantly non-renewable electricity supply sourcing. And the story is, even before the rates jumped up into some strange territory in January 22, you can see that the yellow line and the blue line, the running average of the yellow line. So if you look at the running average of the yellow line, the blue line, you can see that even before these price jumps, the blue line is above our 2 program rate lines, including our 100% renewable line. So the program is delivering what it says it could deliver in terms of cost benefits. People in the program are paying less for 100% renewable electricity than for non-renewable, with the utility making that choice. And it became quite extreme in January, certainly in February, and even in March, where the rate is about 12 cents per kilowatt hour from Central Hudson. You can see that the blue line average has jumped up even what I calculated as the private market rate. So significant savings here. The estimated savings too, just in 1 month for these collective members of these communities in February, because of this significant variation, community members were protected from that spike to the tune of about $3.5 million in February alone. So significant protections offered through this idea of a fixed rate program created by this partnership of communities with the administrator that they chose. So if a program launches, who is part of the program and who's not part of the program? This is really important for people to understand. As I mentioned, the majority of a community are included. And the people that are included automatically are the folks who are in choice number 1 when a program starts. So everyone who's in the original default setting, the New York State determined default setting, if and when a program launches, they move from the utility making their supply choice to the supply choice made by the aggregation of communities, down to choice 3. So that does tend to be, 70 to 80% of a community is in that position. Folks who are not included are folks who have a third-party supply arrangement already. In essence, these folks have already opted out of the program before it began by taking advantage of the supply marketplace that's available to them. So folks in choice 2, not included automatically, but they can join the program if they want to. They just need to make sure that there's no penalty to do so from their existing third-party supplier, but they can end that arrangement and join the CCA program. All right, so that's what this bullet says. So everyone's included from that choice 1 in the menu. This is choice 2, folks who have a third-party arrangement, they're not included. Also not automatically included are folks who have larger electricity demands, industrial, commercial properties, for example, or like if a school has a large use through a meter, they are called demand customers. They have a demand charge on their bill, and they are automatically not included, though they can choose to join the program. Anyone within the municipal borders can choose to take advantage of the fixed rate of the program should they so choose to. The third grouping that we talked about who are not included are folks who have put a block or a freeze on their account they've done it themselves with Central Hudson. So that's the third bullet. Folks who have a block on their account are not included. And then finally, the group of folks not included automatically are anyone who's in a home energy assistance payment program, basically a HEAP program that they're receiving subsidies to pay their utility bills. And these folks are not included automatically because the fixed rate in some months will be higher than the utility rate, meaning there's not a guaranteed savings. So it was decided in the design of the program that folks who have home energy assistance payment programs should not be automatically included. But again, if they want to be part of the program, they can be. Anybody can join, and that's what we make very easy for them. So when a program launches, anyone who's not in these categories automatically enrolled, unless they take some action to opt out, and opting out is very simple. Any one action works. When the program launches, it's explained very clearly what those choices are, where any one choice will do. So the next steps for what's happening at Saugerties, we're going to continue doing outreach. This is the first of our public meetings where we're inviting people to come and learn about the program. We have 2 in-person meetings coming up. On the 13th, we'll be at the Firehouse. I forget the date. We'll be at the Senior Center. I have to look at my flyer. But we have another Zoom meeting. I think it's on May 3rd. And if you know anybody who would like us to come and talk to them at their meetings, if we could go to somebody's meeting and give them an overview of the program, we're happy to do so. So feel free to contact me with that request or suggestion. So we're going to be doing outreach, and then the community gets to decide based on looking at the market whether it makes sense to proceed. And if it does decide to proceed and a competitive request for proposals is issued and a successful proposal returns with a fixed rate that makes sense to the community, then we would move towards launch. And the details of the program, what the rate would be, how long the contract would be, details about what this is all about and why we're doing it, the methods that people could opt out of the program or opt back into it, all of that detailed information is sent to everybody in what we call a welcome or an opt-out letter, which is sent to every eligible customer. And we anticipate that if things move forward as we expect them to, and the market is looking quite favorable for doing these programs, that would happen in late summer of this year. The second bullet, that letter starts an opt-out period of 30 days, which is not a period where it's the only time you could opt out, but it's a 30-day period where folks who do not want anything to change from their current arrangement, if they're happy in choice 1 on the menu and they want to keep it that way, they can opt out during that 30 days and nothing changes. But after that period, everything moves towards launch and the transition will happen. And we anticipate that the utility rate will be on customers who stay in the program in the fall of 2022. But again, emphasize anybody could opt out at any time, and there's no cost to do so. There's no hidden fees associated with this program. And also important to say, there's no cost to the municipality to do this program. This is just a kind of a wonderful symbiotic relationship that benefits all of the team members involved, including the municipality, the community members, the administrator they choose, the supplier we pick. It just works for everybody. And there's no direct cost to the town to pay for this program, nor is there a cost for even sending the mailing. That's paid for by the selected supplier. All right, so we're getting down towards the end here. I'll just review 3 slides of frequently asked questions, and I'll stop for questions you folks might have. All right, so this is definitely a review to many things I hope I've said. The first frequently asked question that we like to emphasize: does this program replace the utility company? Does it replace Central Hudson? And the answer is no. Central Hudson is a delivery company, and they continue to get paid for being a delivery company. This is just a line item change in the supply charges section, if it happens. And it is all done through the Central Hudson bill. So nothing changes with regard to that relationship. Second, when people hear that we're focusing on this win-win scenario of fostering the use of renewable power, and they know that wind power or solar power, they're not 100% available because the sun is not shining all day or the wind is not blowing all day. They have a question about the reliability. Rest assured that there's no impact on the reliability of electricity delivery to the customers in the community. All of the supply sources, including the renewable sources that we support, which includes also hydropower, solar and wind, they are all overseen, and the delivery of electricity into the New York State grid is overseen by the New York State Independent System Operator, the Department of Public Service, and the local utility to make sure that there's reliable delivery. So being a part of this program does not change anything in terms of the reliability of delivery of electricity. Will the program save me money? It can, but it's not guaranteed. As we saw, it's a fixed rate program, and there's a varying kind of a roller coaster ride of utility rates, and it can be lower on some months. So it's not guaranteed, though the performance of the program has been going quite well, and it has been saving people money since most of 2021 and 2022. It's been really quite excellent. What if I want to change my supply choice? If a customer is involved in the program and they want to change their supply choice, they have the ability to do so at any time. There is complete flexibility, and there's numerous ways you can do that. My nonprofit is there. We have a helpline. We have email. There's a form on the program website where people can enter information and make requests. They can do their own form to opt in or opt out of the program, and to make a supply selection. So it's made very easy to change the supply choice, which they can do at any time. Do I have to stay in the program the entire time? It's the programs that we've been involved in the Hudson Valley have been 2-year or 3-year programs. That's the length of the contract that we've locked the supplier into for a fixed rate. So people want to know, do I have to stay in the program the whole time? And as I've been emphasizing, no, anybody could opt out or opt back in at any time during the length of the contract, and there's no fees or no penalties to do so. The question in the middle is, can I participate if I have my own solar panels or if I participate in community solar? And the answer to that is yes. And that's going back to the 2 different sections of the utility bill that I was showing, the Central Hudson bill, emphasizing that the supply rate program is a different calculation. It's a different financial transaction from the benefit that comes from solar strategies, any solar decision that somebody might make. And then once the contract period ends, what happens after the program period ends? A lot of people, based on those previous private market bad experiences, are concerned that, well, after this contract period of this fixed rate, am I stuck in this program and the rate turns variable and it might go really high? Part of the consumer protection design of the program is that it is a set fixed rate for a set period of time, after which, 2 or 3 year contract of that fixed rate. After that contract ends, either the municipality will have engaged in a process to seamlessly do it again to obtain another fixed rate as the 9 of the existing Hudson Valley Community Power communities did. They went from a 2-year contract that ended in 2021, and now they're involved in a 3-year contract that goes through 2024, June of 2024. But if a community decides not to do so, as one of our previous 10 communities chose not to, everybody in that community, just without having to take any action, automatically goes back to that original default, to number 1 in my menu slide, to the utility making that supply choice for them. So the idea is that no one is stuck, and no one needs to do careful management to make sure that they're getting an optimal benefit from the program. So it really is, to sum it up in 2 words for community leadership, why this would make sense for community leaders to do this on behalf of their community members. 1, it's a way to optimize what's available in the energy supply marketplace, which can be confusing to navigate for people. Most people don't look at their utility bills and don't understand that they have the ability to make a supply choice. So community leaders can act to optimize what's available in the supply marketplace, particularly through this program. And 2, to protect them as well, because there are lots of bad experiences out there and bad actors and a lot of well-earned distrust. And so in the design of the program, people are given this no commitment, no contract, clear, transparent, fixed rate, fixed period program to take advantage of if they want to. And if they don't, they can just jump out of it at any time. And that's what we're here to support. So thank you for your patience. That's kind of my overview of the program. Here's my contact information. You can reach us at the helpline, which is 859-9099, and it's extension 2 for Central Hudson customers. There's the website for the existing partnership program. There's a lot more information on there. But please do contact us with questions. And if you have suggestions for ways we can help to spread the word in the village of Saugerties, we welcome them. Now, we'll be doing a lot more, including sending letters to the editor, to the papers, and requesting articles, and holding more public events, and sending email blasts. So we're going to be a presence in the community. So I'm going to stop now and just see if there's any questions. Feel free to unmute and answer a question and ask a question. I do see one from Robert. He says, "Is it safe to assume that village elected officials are in support of moving forward?" We are here to date. They're interested in the exploration of seeing whether this makes sense, and I think it was a unanimous consideration to move forward with this exploration. And Trustee Mayor, I don't want to speak for you. Please feel free to jump in here. But they're interested in seeing whether it makes sense, and that's the process that we're doing right now. We're educating the community about what it is, and we'll be getting ready in a few months' time to look at the marketplace to see what we can expect in terms of the supply rate, and then they have the choice to decide whether to proceed or not.
Yes,
Trustee Mayor?
I'm sorry, Jeff. I will jump in. Yes, in the beginning, when we first heard about it, there were a few people that were against it only because you have to opt out. But since things have been happening currently, especially like we said with Central Hudson, almost everyone is pretty much sure that they want to continue, at least with getting all of the information and getting feedback from the citizenry, and then we'll make the final decision. But it is looking that most of us are very positive.
Thank you both. Appreciate that.
Are there any other questions?
Just curious, are there any numbers on, this is more of a geeky kind of question, I guess, what the percentages are of the types of energy production that we'd be looking at?
No, it's a very good question, and it's a changing answer.
Okay.
There is a status right now where predominantly what's available through these programs, for the purchase through CCA programs, we are, to many people's surprise, quite a hydropower rich state. There is a lot. I mean, not even, people think of Niagara Falls when they think of hydropower, but there are a lot of hydropower generation sources around the state, including environmentally responsible ones, which are the only type that this program allows. There is a requirement that hydropower projects be LIHI certified, LIHI certified, which is a Low Impact Hydropower Institute certification, to ensure that that these are run-of-river projects. They're not impacting the ecosystem in negative ways. And to date, it's been 100% purchase of hydropower for our programs that we've been doing, I think, around the state. But that is very much anticipated to change in very short order. There's been work over the last several years for designing large-scale solar projects, and in particular offshore wind projects, which are going to be the predominant source of renewables, and actually the predominant source of energy in New York State will be offshore wind in not so many years. And we anticipate that there has been, because of changes that have been put in place, including the ability for NYPA to serve as a transmission player within this process, for more and more offshore wind to be part of the purchase for these programs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, thank you.
It's a good one. I didn't emphasize enough what the sourcing was that we're supporting. Does anyone else have a question? All right, well, my contact information is there. I do encourage everyone to reach out to me either by phone or by email if you have any questions or suggestions too on how we can spread the word. But I'll stop now. I'll stop the recording first.